Hello, this is Shamak Acharya, and this is my article analysis of the electrocardiogram changes with acute alcohol intoxication, a systemic review. The article starts out talking about the different environmental factors that influence the health of the heart, which I disagree with, since those are behavioral in origin, but I can see that they are indeed influenced by the environment. Alcohol intoxication of the electrocardiogram, or ECG, is unknown. The World Health Organization has stated that 2.5 million deaths annually is the leading risk factor worldwide for deaths among males between 15 to 59 years of age. Acute alcohol intoxication leads to cardiac arrhythmias. Heavy chronic drinking affects the systolic and diastolic functions of the heart and also affects the left ventricle to dilate conduction arrhythmias of the heart and messing up with the left ventricle's function to pump blood through the aorta to throughout the body from the head down to the toes. Health complications arise from consuming too much alcohol. There are some health benefits when consuming the right dose. In short, dose makes the poison. And here are some recommendations for healthy dose of alcohol, which is 28 grams per male for one drink and 14 grams per day for women. Here is figure 6.2 from the textbook that shows that below the threshold line gives health benefits, while above the threshold line gives health complications that start to arise. And this is an example of a specific toxicant. The materials for this study analysis is a literature review of all the literatures that can be found on this topic. They use PubMed and Cohen literature search, and they preferred reporting items from systemic reviews and meta-analysis guidelines for their criteria to match. And the medical subject headings and items that they used are like ECG, alcohol, ethanol, acute intoxication, and they also used other free items or free item words just to find what other related topics with this big heading of cardiogram and ECG related. And the articles are up to January 2017. That's the time frame from as early as before 2000 and all the way up to January of 2017. And they even looked at the titles, abstracts, references of articles, and they excluded articles that are like duplicates since they had already have it. And these are the inclusion criteria, and they are randomized control trials, case control studies, confirmation ECG changes with acute alcohol intoxication in English in person of any age or sex with abnormal ECGs. And the exclusion criteria is pre-existing alcohol or non-alcohol related cardiac conditions, experimental or laboratory result tests related to journal articles, letters, editorials, case reports, and doctoral theses, and abstracts. And out of all, they had gotten 91 papers with 4 publications. They have categorized it into different study types, demographics, trigger events, types of ECG, changes or arrhythmias, the amount of alcohol consumed. And yes, these are all the ones that have been cataloged. And this is a visual representation of exactly that, what I had just mentioned in the previous slide, and a few slides ago as well. This is the table of all the studies and their characteristics included in the analysis in a visual representation. And here the results shows the ECG changes in the studies that were included from table 2. And one few key things that stand out to me are the atrial fibrillation, which is only 1, and this is from study 4, and enable, and this is a case control study with 84 number of subjects. And yes, and also the QTC also is the only one that this article has. And then for case control study for the study 3, it's only the P wave prolongation that is documented. And for PREST study 2, is the ST segmented depression and the T wave abnormalities that were recorded, and the P wave and QRST prolongations are what is identified in the S study, in the S1 group, which is the first study. And out of all the studies, there were 141 studies documented. And here are all the percentages of how much in each column that these studies take up in their respective columns. And one thing that I find pretty interesting is that the biggest one out of all the studies is the P wave prolongation. And then followed by the QTC, and then from T wave abnormalities down to the QRS, and then ST segmented depression and the atrial fibrillation. And the discussion is that other underlying cardiac depression disorders are not known or non-specific, and the liver metabolizes the alcohol, and cardiac ECG changes are affected by acute alcohol intoxications. Like certain ECG changes are affected by acute alcohol intoxication. Serial ECG needs to be identified during hospitalization. Internal myocardial, like with alcohol, with ethanol, is internal myocardial, and arrhythmias like mess up with the ion channels of the heart, especially the potassium and magnesium channels, and high serum alcohol content in the blood affects the electrical potential in the ion channels of the heart and affects the sodium and calcium channels. The PR, QRS, and QT intervals are affected and sensitize the myocardium to arterial arrhythmia as well as on the life-threatening ventricular arrhythmias, which get affected. The cardiac problems with sudden intake of alcohol that affect when you go so much that can cause the heart to overreact. And then yes, you need to keep a change for sudden change in cardiac levels. If there's 600 milligrams of 600 milligrams per 100 milliliters of alcohol has been consumed. Biocardia and arterial ventricular block some affects the sodium and calcium channels. Alcohol side effects can still occur 9 hours after everything is seemed to be back to normal. Intoxication of the blood in its vessels can still have an impact on the arrhythmia of the heart, causing the heart to push harder to reduce, more like to push harder to pump blood throughout the body. But if it gets too much, the heart might stop and start to die and stop working as a result. The conclusion is that here are the sections that go from lowest to highest is the P wave, the QTC prolongation, followed by the T wave abnormalities and the QRS prolongation. Recovery from acute alcohol is almost always works when alcohol is removed, like you can go back to normal. Acute alcohol intoxication with ECG abnormalities is still unknown as of this journal article being written. And there are a few limitations of the study, and they include the number of studies that they have gathered and the literature themselves that they have used to write this literature review is like what were the limitations of those literatures and journal articles that were documented used for this literature review. They also have their own limitations. Acute alcohol intoxication to ECG abnormalities is not even known thoroughly, which I find is also to be a limitation. And there are a few ways that this journal article contributes to the body of knowledge. It ends up compiling all the literature about this topic and puts it in a far more visual way in what is known about this topic. And it also provides best procedural practices of the current time. And that is all for how it contributes to the field. And here are some criticisms that I have. It actually ends up organizing all the information about this topic, and also provides a visual, short, and helpful description of what is actually known. And one criticism that I have is why didn't the authors use those certain studies from their exclusion section? Did they actually did those articles actually have limitations of their own, or did they not provide possible solutions to the answer of the ECG cardiogram arrhythmias associated with acute alcohol intoxication? And these are the references. Yes, and these are my references that I've used to typing of this literature or journal article analysis. The top one is about the journal article itself, and the bottom is for the textbook. Here are all the references from the journal article itself that the journal article uses for this for its analysis and references. And thank you for listening to me, and have a wonderful day.